Jesus went into the temple. I just want you to imagine this. Use your imagination if you can. Jesus went into the temple. The temple represents that God's mercy is still here on earth. And here he went into the temple, and all he did was look around. He looked all around, looked at different things that were going on, but he never said a word. Here's what it says, and Jesus went into Jerusalem and into the temple. So when he had looked around at all things, as the hour was already late, he went out to Bethany with the 12. God, Jesus, came to the thing that represent him and his Father. He looked around and said nothing. My brothers and sisters, I want you to grasp what's going on here, what Jesus is getting ready to do. Here, my brothers and sisters, is like your boss coming from the corporate office. Came and look around where you're working, which is not the corporate office. And all he did was just look around without saying anything. My God, at least I know I would be terrified, because he's thinking about something may not be right, or he could be observing what is wrong. My God, and it says in verse 12, and the next day when they come out from Bethany, he was hungry. And seeing afar a fig tree having leaf, he went to see if perhaps he would find something on it. When he came to it, he found nothing but leaf, for it was not the season for the fig. Here Jesus is just want to show the people what faith and power can do. My God, and in response, Jesus said to it, let no one eat fruit from you ever again. At this, and his disciples heard it. But here's where we're going to get down to business. We're going to get down to business in Mark chapter 15. In Mark chapter 11, verses 15. So when they came to Jerusalem, then Jesus went into the temple and began to drive out those who bought and sold in the temple. My brothers and sisters, the first thing that came to my mind as I looked at this scripture, what were they selling? What were they buying in the temple? What would Jesus say today of our churches? Would he turn over the tables of the money changer? Would he agree with everything that we're doing? And so you see, my brothers and sisters, it says here in verse 15 of Mark chapter 11, so they came to Jerusalem. Then Jesus went into the temple and began to drive out those who bought and sold in the temple, and overturned the tables of the money changer and the seats of those who sold doves. My God, you see, my brothers and sisters, I'm going somewhere with this. You see, whenever money comes into the picture, my God, money will drive corruption. If we're not careful, that we'll forget the things that we ought to do, that God told us to do. And money will drive corruption. Before long, we will use the house of God, my God, to be a house of merchandise. If we're not careful, my God, we will use the house of God to be a house of merchandise and forget the purpose of what the house of God ought to be. My God, you see, my brothers and sisters, here Jesus went into the first temple. My God, and he looked around and he said nothing. Here he came into the second temple. My God, and start turning over tables of those who are money changers or dealing with money changers, those who was buying and selling in the house of God. You see, my brothers and sisters, if we're not careful, my God, let me talk to you today. If we're not careful, we will forget what the house of God ought to be. What the designation of the house of God ought to be. If we're not careful, my brothers and sisters, if we're not careful, we'll turn the house of God into a house of business instead of a house of righteousness. If we're not careful, my brothers and sisters, my God, we will turn the house of God into a den of thieves, my God, instead of a den of righteousness. You see, my brothers and sisters, there was something going on in the temple. One, Jesus went into one and said nothing. The other one, he went into and started turning over things. My God. You see, my brothers and sisters, We got to be careful that if we allow corruption to come in, then we cannot do the work and the will of the Father. My God, you see, my brothers and sisters, we got to be careful what we do in the house of God, because by doing certain things in the house of God, we are allowing the devil to come in. We got to be careful, my brothers and sisters, what we do in the house of God. My God, my God. And it says, so they came to Jerusalem. Then Jesus went into the temple, and he began to drive out those who bought and sold in the temple, and overturned the table of the money changer, and the seats of those who sold doves. My God, my God, my God. And he would not allow anyone to carry wares through the temple. You see, my brothers and sisters, I want to focus in on this word called wares. How do you spell it? W-A-R-E-S.